All right, well, let's peep this one, though. The mysterious cult that everyone loves. Let's start a cult, guys. Let's look at inspo.
This was the moment police finally caught the notorious cult leader, Sengoku Jesus. The 2-year-long manhunt was over, and now everyone wanted to know where he was keeping the 15 missing women, and if any of them were even still alive. But before they could answer that question, the police released him. They just let him walk. The public was absolutely stunned. But this was only the first of many shocking revelations to come. This is the story of Jesus's Ark. Japan, 1975. 5 years before he was the most wanted guy in the country, Sengoku Takeyoshi was a 52-year-old door-to-door knife salesman. You might think he's a loser, but this guy survived World War II and once owned an entire knife factory.
Wow.
And you know what? Sengoku was one hell of a knife salesman. He was just a charming guy with a magnetism that made everyday folks trust him. And the ladies, they loved him. After he showed the housewives his knives, he'd ask if they'd ever heard of a cool cat named Jesus Christ. Most Japanese people didn't know the first thing about old JC because the last time he came over, some very unchill things happened. But if Sengoku was the one leading the Bible study group, now they were interested. But you're probably wondering, who the hell would go to a Bible study?
Wait, this guy, that's the guy in Battle Royale, right?
Group led by a knife salesman. As it turns out, a lot of people, mostly young women. What really drew them in was the way Sengoku talked about his dark past. He didn't lie. He used to be a really bad guy, a spoiled brat whose rich parents would bail him out of trouble every time. The Navy gave him a really bad temper, so bad it bankrupted his knife factory. But he was one of those guys, the Bible saved my life kind of guys. Only problem was, he hated the church and hated pastors even more. All he wanted was to read the Bible and become more like Jesus, teach like Jesus, live like Jesus lived. So what did he do? He started a commune, specifically a Bible study commune that he called Jesus's Ark. You know, like Noah. Within a year, they had quite a following, mostly young women who ran away from home to live here, an 80 square meter prefab shack on the outskirts of Tokyo, surrounded by a makeshift iron fence. By the late 70s, 26
Video
people...
name, the mysterious cult that all of Japan loves. Someone linked me this because I said yesterday, has there ever been any cults that actually did good things and were good for the people in it?
Called this place home. As you could imagine, the parents of these runaway girls were pissed. Every day they'd show up banging on the walls of the compound and screaming into megaphones. But that didn't work. The women were now more loyal to a knife salesman than their own freaking parents. The mothers eventually got so desperate, they went to the police, who put detectives on the case. Tensions got so hot that in May of '78, a police squad busted down the door of the compound. But it was too late. The group had disappeared. Sengoku was tipped off about the raid and snuck away with his followers the night before. They were now drifters, running from town to town and avoiding the police. Sengoku kept a tight ship. If any of them got pulled over, even for speeding, and had to show their ID, they'd pack up and move to a new city the very next day. They hustled, working any job they could to make ends meet. He had them selling clothes, tea, seaweed, and, you guessed it, knives. When that wasn't enough, Sengoku's followers dipped into their own savings. One woman even sold her house to help them stay afloat.
Wow.
Over the next 2 years, they set up in more cities than Cirque du Soleil. Meanwhile, desperate parents were reaching out to every news organization they could, and after hundreds of letters, finally one listened. Feminist magazine Fujin Koron. In January 1980, they ran a full-page article titled, "Sengoku Jesus, Return Our Daughters." The media went wild, painting this picture of a smooth-talking cult leader who brainwashed susceptible young women and stole them from their parents. This was the year after the Jonestown massacre, so death cults were on everyone's mind. Some magazines started comparing Jesus' Ark to Manson and his family, and others claimed that Sengoku had created a harem. So, Sengoku was now public enemy number one. Every day, the tabloids pumped out new stories which only got crazier and crazier. I'm talking stuff like, Sengoku Jesus has already killed the women one by one. Was Sengoku Jesus behind the mysterious 300 million yen heist? Yeah, some of these conspiracy theories were obviously nuts, but it shows you just how terrified people were of him. Around this time, a bunch of media outlets started receiving letters, this time from the women, apparently. They all said the same thing.
That was trippy as hell.
We're fine. We weren't kidnapped, and we're definitely not a death cult. Yeah, that's a totally reassuring sentence. Needless to say, these letters were not convincing anybody. All the commotion soon made its way to the Japanese Diet, their parliament, where representatives called Jesus' Ark a group of fanatics and demanded an investigation. Next thing you know, the police began a massive 2,000-strong manhunt. They searched everywhere and came up with nothing.
Rip.
6 months later, the cops were losing hope and running out of leads when all of a sudden, they got a call from a very unlikely source. An ambulance had just picked up a strange, ragged-looking old man who fit Sengoku's description. He had had a heart attack, but when they asked his name, he refused to answer. Just like that, they got him. The cops weren't taking any chances, though. They immediately put a guard right outside Sengoku's hospital room, but that didn't keep the reporters out.
But, so this is interesting. Something's happened. I'm thinking all the ladies kicked him out of the cult.
自分の信念だったことなの？
そうしか言えませんね。
で、悪いとは思わない。娘たちに迷惑かけたと思わない？病人なんでお願いします。
そういう簡単な言葉ではちょっと表現できないんですが。
Nice camera. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh shit, I'm sorry.
Reporters out.
You guys don't speak Japanese? Why not?
なんか信念でやったこと？自分の信念でやったことなの？
そうしか言えませんね。
で、悪いとは思わない。娘たちに迷惑かけたと思わない？病人なんでお願いします。
そういう簡単な言葉ではちょっと表現できないんですが。
The investigators followed the ambulance call to the dormitories of a printing company and hit the jackpot. There, they found Sengoku's wife and all of the missing women. They were safe. But something was wrong. Before we continue the story, I'd like to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Tokyo Treat and Sakurako. These
regular
are Japanese
treats?
snack boxes that are shipped to your house every month. I have two to show you today, both of which have special Valentine's Day themes. Tokyo Treat provides exciting, limited edition Japanese snacks. For their Be My Valentine theme this month,
Japanese candy was alright. It didn't blow me away, but I was mostly happy with the stuff I tried.
Got the rare Pikachu. Oh my god!
They do like chewy things really well, like chewy textures. If you like that stuff.
Their Valentine's indulgence box,
the rice balls and shit like that.
A chocolate Danish, and even some tea.
Install sponsor block?
Of the ones.
I'm leeching off of this guy's content. I don't mind him running his ad on my stream. Use Japanalysis for $5 off, guys. The link is team.sec. Here's the link.
Use the code Japanalysis for $5 off. Back to the video. So, the police had caught Sengoku and saved the women. Next, they picked Sengoku up from the hospital in handcuffs. He was taken to a cell and charged with defamation and assault. Everyone in Japan celebrated the news.
They don't even know what happened
but
yet.
The last people you'd expect. The women he had supposedly kidnapped. The day after Sengoku's arrest, all of them got together and held a press conference, flat out denying that they had been held against their will. Not only that, they tore into the media for painting Sengoku and Jesus' Ark as some kind of dangerous cult.
とにかく当面はね、この問題を解決することしかないと思うんですね。解決するのはどういうことですか？一番ね、最善の方法としてはね、その親御さんちゃんと話し合いされてね、お互いのね、こう誤解っていうかね、それが。
Well, what is this? He's counting this ne word.
解けて、でそれぞれね、自分の人生をね、自分の意思のままにね、こう歩かれることじゃないですか。
Wonder what that means.
逃亡生活がね、成り立ったって逃亡生活ってやり方はね、すごくこう妥当性を書くと思うんですけども、そのやり方が
It's just a filler word, I'm guessing.
成り立ったっていうこと自体が
Like saying
ね、
right?
結局ね、そのおっちゃんっていうね、人格っていうものをそこにね、示してるんじゃないかと思うんですね。
Sengoku's followers respected and looked up to him.
It's like the Norwegians always say, "Ikke sant?" That's their filler, which means, isn't that right?
He was patient and kind. He was their teacher. Sengoku lived and worked alongside his disciples. He even built their first commune with his own two hands. He was just a great leader, simple as that. Needless to say, all of the harem allegations were completely rejected.
All the other dudes just assume that anyone running away with like 10 ladies is gonna get some action on. Seems like the guy never did.
So what made these women leave their comfortable middle-class lifestyles for a knife salesman's shack in the first place? Well, it's something every red-blooded American knows a thing or two about: freedom and meaning in life. They found his message liberating. As one woman explains, the pressure to excel was tremendous, but those who achieved it didn't seem happy at all. Why? The luxury jacuzzi that her dad bought for her was nice, but she felt happier in the commune's cold concrete bath. In the end, the whole Jesus' Ark kidnapping story was nothing more than a fairy tale spun by the media. Sengoku never even used the name Sengoku Jesus. They made that up too. After the press conference, the police had nothing to hold Sengoku on. So they had to let him go. They released him. He was free. That was it. So what did he do next? Well, he came back even harder. He moved to Fukuoka and built a mega commune. By this point, the police had already brought all the women back to their families. But once they heard that Sengoku was free, and when he was building...
You should have built an ark.
親御さんところに一度帰りましたね。
いやいや、帰りました、帰りました。
それが全員戻ってきたんですか。
全員、
Yes, every single one from all over Japan came right back to him. But maybe you're
Probably
still
way
not
more
convinced.
too.
Maybe this story
Damn,
is
look at this guy lounging on the floor.
but a creepy cult leader guy actually being totally cool is a bit hard to believe. But you want to know the most shocking part of this whole thing? Everything I've told you so far took place in 1979.
I like these random cuts to like dandruff and back.
This whole thing? Everything I've told you so far took place in 1979, 1980. Well, guess what? 45 years later, they're still together. They still live in the commune. After the whole scandal blew over and they all came back to Sengoku, they started living a mostly normal life. As normal as it can be living in the Jesus' Ark mega commune, at least. The women started a restaurant back in the 80s, and it's done pretty well. I mean, it's still open, but more on that later. They all continue studying the Bible and practicing Sengoku's tenets of eliminating ego and helping others. In 2001, Sengoku passed away from natural causes at the age of 78.
Rip.
His widow, now 92, has led the commune ever since. It's now women only and has 12 inhabitants, most of them elderly. They rotate cooking and weekly
they all got
tasks in
old.
the commune, which has dormitories and a specific area for Bible study. When the women go out, they always go in groups, even for shopping. This is a rule that Sengoku made for them after the media scandal, and they still follow it today. The restaurant they started, it's called Daughters of Zion, and it's actually something called a snack, which is a Japan-specific type of business. If you've ever heard of a hostess club, it's kind of like on the same spectrum, but much tamer, closer to a normal bar. Generally, the patrons are men who do pay to sit at the bar, chat, and eat hand-cooked food. But Daughters of Zion has very strict rules. Men cannot buy drinks for the women. Women can't even drink on the job. Unlike hostess clubs, the men are not allowed to sit on the same side as the women, and they're definitely not allowed to invite them to meet outside. The women put on some great shows too. Things like piano, singing,
Wing?
dancing, and Japanese theater. If you're interested, you can go visit. But please be respectful. They probably don't get very many foreign guests. You might be wondering, has anyone left Jesus' Ark? And the answer is yes, a few people over the years. One of the reasons people leave is that the commune added a no marriage rule. Members who get married must leave.
Okay.
I guess the idea is that the commune is supposed to be all single women now. The members who get married
All
are
the
still
single
allowed
ladies.
to participate in all the activities and Bible study and stuff. They just can't live in the commune anymore. Oh yeah, by the way, I forgot to mention, they have a monkey. Guys, monkey!
Monkey.
The Jesus' Ark story severely tarnished the reputation of Japanese media organizations. The public kind of caught on that the media spent years attacking an innocent man when the evidence that they were wrong was right in front of them. It would take decades for the media to regain the trust of the public. Seriously, even when the Olmushin Rikyo, an actual dangerous cult, started popping up in 1989, news organizations sounding the alarm had to go out of their way and write, "This isn't like Jesus' Ark, we promise." Basically, everyone's come to accept that Sengoku never led a cult and certainly never assaulted anyone.
Wait, he still led a cult though, right? What's the definition of a cult?
About his life in 1985, starring Bito
Cult.
Takeshi.
Wait a
Honestly-
minute. I told you I recognized him.
1985, starring Bito Takeshi.
That's the guy from Battle Royale.
Honestly, this is one of my favorite stories I've ever put on my channel. When I started researching, I thought if I
Yeah, okay. Let me see. Cult.
Cult.
Cult. A religion or religious sect, generally considered to be extremist or false, with its followers often living in an unconventional manner under the guidance of an authoritarian charismatic leader. It sounds basically like it. Though I don't know how authoritarian he was. It sounded like he made all the rules, but he didn't need to force anyone to do anything, because he didn't ask for that much, I guess. The not extremist? I would say it is still, though. Okay, maybe it's not as extreme as some other cults, but having everyone live together, having everyone go outside together for shopping, having all of these rules, it's still pretty extreme. I mean, you wouldn't have your local church do any of those things, probably. There's a best of internet daily notes. There's the new unusual memes. This thing looks insane.